Hey, this is Stephen Almond. Welcome to my Exorcism.io series. In this episode, I'll be working through the isogram exercise. So an isogram, which is also known as a non-pattern word, is a word or phrase that doesn't have a reoccurring letter. So here's some examples. The word isograms is not an isogram because there are two S's, so the reoccurrence of S. So we're going to build an application that determines if a phrase is an isogram. So let's do it. Open up my testing pane. Okay, let's open up our test. And it's going to fail because we don't have an isogram.rb file. So let's open that up and save the empty file. It fails because we don't have the constant isogram. So let's go ahead and create the class. And this is going to fail because now we need a class method called isogram A. So let's go ahead and define that. We're going to fail now because it requires an argument input. And then final failure here before we get this passing. This needs to return true, and we're just going to go ahead and return true for now. So we're going to go ahead and start running more tests and see what functionality that drives us to implement. So that test passes. All right, the test on line 16, test word with one duplicated character. This is going to fail because we're not actually checking what we've been passed. We're just returning true. So this is going to fail, and it's going to force us to do some sort of check. Okay, so here we go. It expects false, but it's true. And if we just, reverse this and return false, then the other two tests are going to fail. So that doesn't work. We actually have to do some work here. So let's go ahead and dumb this out and sort of brute force our way to the simplest possible thing that could work. So when I see this sort of thing, I think I have a string, but probably I want an array that I can check, right? Because I need to know if any of these characters are repeated. I think back a couple of exercises ago, and we had an array, and we used a method on enumerable, which array implements, called group by. And that allowed us to get a count for the elements that we had, for each element that we had. And I think that's an approach that we could use here. So let's see, what would that look like here? Well, we take our input, and somehow we want to get this into an array of letters. So what could we do? Well, we could just split it. Like that. That's going to give us each character. That's not going to work forever, but that's going to get us, that'll get us a little ways down. Let's see, I want to do this on multiple lines so it's a little clearer what's happening. So once we've split it, we want to group each element. We want to group by itself. Let me see if I can show you what's happening here to make this a little easier to understand. So we have input, we have a string, 11. And then here, we've now split that into an array of individual elements. I'm just going to do it like this. That's our array. And group by itself is going to translate this array into a hash, the keys of which are the letters. And the values are going to be arrays of each occurrence of that letter. So it's going to look like this. Then L with one occurrence, a V with one occurrence, and an N also with one occurrence. So how does that help us? Well, once we have it like this, as we learned in the other exercise, we can transform the values. By count. We can do it this way. We could actually do it the opposite. And that's going to give us our hash with 3, 1, 1, and n equals 1. And so what do we want? Well, we just want to look at the values. Take the max value. Sorry, I should still show what this is. We're going to have here an array now of 3, 1, 1, 1. Max is going to give us 3. And what we want to know is if max is less than 2. Is max less than 2? That's going to tell us if it's an isogram or not. So I think this is going to be enough to get this passing. And there's an error. Undefined method for nil class. That's because our first value up here, which our input is an empty string, this max is going to return 0. I'm sorry, max is going to return nil. And nil can't be compared in this way to an integer. But if we 2i nil, it becomes 0. So this will work. And this is our first working version. I think this is going to get us pretty far. Let me get rid of these comments off camera. Okay. Okay, let's just keep going. And we're going to have to make some changes further down. Let's see. 27 should pass. And then our next test is going to fail. Test word with duplicated character in mixed case, because we are not normalizing the case. So we want to do that here, but we can just add down case before we split. And this is going to get us a little farther. 37. Okay, this should pass. The next test will pass as well. We have a single dash. The next test will pass as well. And so test isogram with duplicated hyphen. This is going to fail because we are not differentiating between letters and other non-letter characters. So this is going to fail because this is being treated as a duplicate letter and is breaking our isogram. Okay, so splitting on each character like this is not going to work anymore. Because we need to differentiate between letters and non-letters. So I think what we need to do instead is let's change this to scan. And we can begin by scanning on word characters. But really, I don't think that's specific enough because we want letters. And word characters includes letters, numbers, and underscores. So in this case, I want to be very specific and define a range from A to Z lowercase because I've already downcased. And I think that's what we want. Okay, good. So this will get us pretty far, maybe all the way to the end. Let's just keep going here and keep running tests. Okay, 62. That should pass. And then this will pass as well. All right, there we go. So we have our first working version of this code. Let's go ahead and submit it. Let's pause and I'll tackle a refactoring and show another solution as well in part 2.